All right, welcome to Talking Investing. I'm Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. This is a weekend update. We're going to go through what happened last week. I want to go through what happened last Friday in specific. We'll take a look at last week. We're going to take a look at year to date, all of our normal charts. In addition to that, I want to go through earnings season. We're going to take a look at the earnings schedule. All the Bitcoin miners, or most of the Bitcoin miners, are putting out earning reports either last week or this week. So I'm just going to show you a quick chart on that. Also, there was some big news from Bitfarms this morning, so I want to go through that as well. Then we'll take a quick look at the Bitcoin chart to wrap things up. So as always, there'll be chapters below. If you're new here, we talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners all the time. So if that's content that you're interested in, please consider subscribing to the channel. We're almost to 21,000 subscribers, so let's see if we can get there. And consider smashing the like button. We're going for 500 likes on this video. It does help the video out a lot, and we appreciate it. Okay, with that said, I want to quickly talk about Bitfarms. Bitfarms here on Monday morning put out two press releases, and really, neither one of them was good news. So I don't want to read too much into this, but I do want to go through and talk to you guys about this because I expect that Bitfarms is going to underperform today, potentially in a big way. We'll see what happens. The first press release came out and said Bitfarms reschedules first quarter conference call to May 15th at 8 a.m. Their conference call was going to be today on Monday. They've pushed that off to Wednesday. That's not a big deal. It's really only 2 business days, but it's never a good sign when a company moves a conference call and an earnings release. Typically, the market does not like that. So obviously, this is a short-term situation. This will rectify itself in 2 days, but this is not going to be received well. And there's a reason for this, which I think is their other press release. So they then basically simultaneously put out this press release. Bitfarms announces acceleration of previously announced termination of CEO and provides update on new CEO appointment. So this is a big change. They say the previously announced termination of the CEO, but that's not really the way that the press release read when they put this out sometime a month or so ago. They were talking about segueing to a new CEO. Geoffrey Morphy terminated as CEO and Nicholas Bonta appointed an interim basis. CEO executive search nearing completion. So previously they said that Geoffrey Morphy was moving on. He was going to stay with the company and help them with their new CEO executive search, and he would leave when that was over. I'll wrap this up quickly, but I just want to read this sentence. Geoffrey Morphy, who had been continuing as president and chief executive officer pending an executive search for a replacement, as announced on March 25th, has been terminated effective immediately. Mr. Morphy also no longer serves as director of the company. On May 10th, 2024, which was Friday, Mr. Morphy filed a statement of claim in the Superior Court of Ontario against the company, claiming damages in breach of contract, wrongful dismissal, and aggravated punitive damages in the amount of $27 million. So this has gone a different way. This seemed like a very amicable departure when they initially announced this back in March. Obviously, this is not amicable. This is now being called a termination. It's effective immediately. There's a lawsuit pending, so the market's not going to like this at all. I don't really like this. I'm not sure what's going on here. Again, this is not financial advice. This ultimately will probably be more short-term stuff than long-term stuff, but this is stuff that the market doesn't like to see. So, my best guess is that the market's going to react negatively to that today. With that said, here's a quick list of when each of the Bitcoin mining companies are going to be reporting earnings. And you're going to see Riot, Marathon, CleanSpark, Core Scientific, and Cypher have already reported. BitDeer actually reported just a few minutes ago, so I have not been through their financial statements yet. They reported simultaneously with me making this video, essentially. So they reported this morning. Bitfarms was going to report today, but like we just talked about, they have moved their reporting day to Wednesday, May 15th. That leaves TeraWulf putting out their report today, Iris Energy, and Hut putting out their report on Wednesday as well. So we still do have 4 more reports coming out, plus the BitDeer report that just came out this morning. So we're getting a lot of information out of these reports, so I just wanted to keep everybody aware of these important dates. Let's take a look at what happened last week, and I want to start with last Friday, because last Friday was a very discouraging day. Bitcoin had a bad day. The Bitcoin miners, for the most part, had a really rough day. As always, there was one outlier. DMG blockchain was up almost 18%. There was no other Bitcoin miner that was even in the green, so that is a microcap / nanocap stock. Other than that, if we go to the top of the list, the larger Bitcoin miners had a very difficult day on Friday. You're going to see Marathon, the largest by market cap, was down 12.67%. That's a rough day. Riot down 10.5%. CleanSpark down over 6%. Bitfarms down 6.5%. So you're going to see that trend continues. Most of the larger Bitcoin miners were down down between 5 and 12%, so that was a rough day. There were a few of the middle-level Bitcoin miners that did a little bit better than that. Hive was down only 0.8%. Hut was down 1.9%. So I'll give you a second to take a look at what happened Friday. But really, what Friday did was kind of erase what had happened during the week. So when we go take a look at what happened during the week, you're going to see it was much less dramatic than what happened here on Friday. So with that said, let's go do that. This is the Bitcoin miners' performance for the week ended Friday, May 10th. You're going to see, as always, Bitcoin is in gold. Bitcoin was down 2% last week. So Bitcoin had a rough week last week. This continues the trend of the last really 2.5 months of Bitcoin moving sideways and a little bit to the downside. But inside of that, you're going to see a big grouping here in the middle that acted very similarly to Bitcoin. So for the most part, the Bitcoin miners did not have as rough a week as they did on Friday. There are a few outliers at both ends of the spectrum. You'll see several Bitcoin miners did perform the same as Bitcoin. Some performed better. Core Scientific had a really good week. They were up 9%. That was the best out of all the Bitcoin miners. So they're one of the larger Bitcoin miners. They announced earnings. The market really liked their earnings report. Just to take a look at a few of the larger market caps, Marathon was down 2%, so that was the same as Bitcoin. So, that was decent performance on par with Bitcoin. CleanSpark was down 4%. That's a little bit of a leverage play to the downside on Bitcoin, but still in the neighborhood. There were a few of the larger ones that did have a rough week. Cypher was down 10%. They're over $1 billion market cap, so they are one of the larger Bitcoin miners. They had a very rough week, down 10%. Riot, the third largest Bitcoin miner by market cap, they were down 12%. So those two in particular had a difficult week. There were four that did even worse than that, but these four are four of the five that we've been talking about that the market just continues to beat up. I think the market has lost all confidence in some of these smaller nano cap Bitcoin mining companies. So that showed through all the way down to Mawson, which was down 21%. That was the worst performer on the week. But by and large, you're going to see a really big grouping here in the middle. So despite the fact that Friday was awful, really last week was pretty much a sideways week overall for the Bitcoin miners. Okay, so this is a new chart I added just about 3.5 weeks ago. This is comparing all the Bitcoin miners from April 16th. I think all the Bitcoin miners put a low in on April 16th, and for the vast majority of them, that seems to be holding. So despite the fact that Bitcoin has been sideways, in fact, Bitcoin, you'll see in gold here, has been down 3% since that time. You're going to see almost every single Bitcoin miner is in the green. There are 3 that are in the red, so Argo Blockchain is a little bit below their April 16th number, down 2%, still less than Bitcoin. Any is down 12%. Again, that is a nano cap stock, a very, very small market cap stock. But the one worth noting is Hive. Hive is one of those that are in the middle. They're a 200 million plus market cap company. Their April 16th bottom is not holding. The market's been selling off Hive. I'm not quite sure why. So I just look at all these charts for these different types of reasons. I think Hive's very interesting at this number. Again, not financial advice. And also, again, to reiterate, they did not hold that low on April 16th. So they do have some momentum to the downside currently. But so we're going to keep our eye on this list. I do think for most of these companies, that was a local bottom. And unless Bitcoin has some kind of flash crash, it's my opinion that these will hold. But again, this is not financial advice. This is just another way I'm trying to look at this to see what's going on. Okay, then if we look at year to date, you'll see this year still remains very difficult for the Bitcoin miners. There are only one Bitcoin miner that's in the green. CleanSpark is up 41%. So CleanSpark and Bitcoin, you're going to see Bitcoin and gold as always up 44%. So these are very close. They've been very competitive all year. The other Bitcoin miners, for the most part, have been in the red all year long. I will say TeraWulf and Cypher keep bouncing between the green and the red, so they've been hanging around very close to zero for several weeks now. Just to take a look at a few of the larger names, Marathon's down 27% year to date. Riot is down 41% year to date. So that rounds out the top 3 from a market cap standpoint. And you're going to see a big grouping down, in between 40 and 45%. And then there's these 5 that we've been talking about for a long time that I think the market has basically lost all confidence in. Stronghold Stronghold Gree, Argo Blockchain, Mawson, and Any are down between 61 and 74%. That's just year to date, and that's in the same time frame when Bitcoin is up 44%. So you can see, as we've talked about on this channel for over a year now, I do think there will be winners and losers in this cycle. These smaller market cap companies, and really it's the smaller Bitcoin mining companies, the Bitcoin mining companies that have, somewhere around 1 exahash or less, I think are really struggling. Even those that are at 2 or 2.5 exahash, that's a very difficult spot to be in here post-halving. So we're going to see what happens. But for now, they are underperforming their peers, and all the Bitcoin miners you can see other than CleanSpark are still in the red year to date. Okay, quickly, this is a chart measuring back to November of 2021. That is when Bitcoin hit its previous all-time high. Bitcoin hit 69,000 somewhere around November 10th, 2021. So this is measuring from where all the Bitcoin miners were at that time. So you're going to see Bitcoin itself is down 12%. It is worth noting Bitcoin did break that previous all-time high. It did get as high as almost $74,000, but as of last Friday, it was down 12% versus that previous high. You're going to see the only one that's even in that neighborhood is CleanSpark, down 34%, and then you've got Cypher down 63%. From there, to take a look at some of the big ones, again, Marathon and Riot are the first and third largest by market cap. Marathon's down 79%, Riot's down 80%. That's very consistent with the previous Bitcoin cycle 4 years ago. Bitcoin miners seem to be behaving very similarly to what they were doing in the previous Bitcoin halving. We're going to see if they continue the rest of that phase. From this point in the cycle last time, a lot of the Bitcoin miners, in fact, almost all of the Bitcoin miners, did hit new all-time highs. So they had massive runs to the upside. I don't think that's going to happen for all of the Bitcoin miners. I do think a lot of these that are down between 94 and 99%, I think it's extremely unlikely these are ever going to reach their previous highs. Having said that, I do think some of these in the middle here, down between 80 and 85%, I do think stand a chance at making a run at getting a new all-time high sometime between now and the end of this bull market, which typically would be the next 12 to 15 months. These companies would have to go up 500 or 600% to get back to their previous all-time highs, and these are the ones that are down around 80 to 85%. So it gets much worse than that the lower you go. As with any of these charts, if there's a Bitcoin miner that you feel good about the underlying fundamentals in their business, model, in their operations, in their growth plans, on their balance sheet, their income statement, then, as you see them down this much, this is one potential way to identify potential opportunities. We've been following the 4 US indexes, as well as the 2 largest commodities and the 2 largest cryptocurrencies. So this is their activity last week. So you can see last week was a green week for everything really except for cryptocurrency. You'll see Bitcoin and gold down 2.29%. Ethereum had a very rough week. Ethereum was down 5.65% last week. So those two were in the red. Everything else was in the green. Silver had a giant week. Silver's been having a good year. Gold had a good week, up 2.5%. And then all the indexes were actually up on the week. Dow was up 2%. S&P up just under 2%. The Russell just over 1%. And the NASDAQ up over just 1%. Okay, if we take that year to date, we see a different story. Still, even though the cryptocurrencies have been struggling as of recently, they are by far the 2 top performers, and Bitcoin is by far the best performer out of all of these. Bitcoin up over 47% year to date as of last Friday. And you'll see the lagging performer is the Russell. They are in the green, but just 0.5%, less than 0.5%. So we're keeping our eye on this. The cryptocurrencies, while they continue to go sideways over the last couple of months, they still have been the best performers by far year to date. We'll see if that trend continues. Lastly, just to take a quick look at the Bitcoin chart. This is Bitcoin on the 1-day time frame. I know there's a lot of lines on here. I want to look at just a couple in specific. This gold line at $60,652, this is where Bitcoin was when the US equity markets closed on Friday. So you're going to see Saturday was a green candle, very small. Sunday was a green candle. And today, Monday, so far, is a nice green candle. But we are still very early in the trading day as I'm making this video. So you guys will see as the day goes on if this holds or if we have a pullback. Bitcoin has been extremely volatile. So until these daily candles close, we really never know what's going to happen. But at the moment, we're up over $2,000 from where we were on Friday when the US equity markets closed. So far, that looks good. By the same token, since we hit our all-time high on March 13th, you're going to see we've basically been in an arrow headed downward inside of a trading range. The other important line I wanted to look at was this red line right here. This is at around $61,900, so just under $62,000. That has been a pretty reliable floor in this trading range. We did break below this now a few times, but so far, each time we break below, it's only for 1 or 2 days and we gravitate back above. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be looking for. It would be nice if we continue to trade sideways inside of this range and consolidate versus continue to go to the downside. However, there is a box here that I have. This gold box, the top of this box represents a 20% pullback from Bitcoin's high, and that's this purple line back on March 13th. And the bottom of this box represents a 25% pullback from Bitcoin's high. So that's a typical pullback. Really, over the last 18 months, we've had now 5 pullbacks. They've all been between 20 and 23%, including the one that we are having right now. This has been about a 23.5% pullback from the top to the bottom. But again, we do continue to trade sideways a little bit with a bias to the downside. The last thing I want to look at is the daily RSI. So we talked about there was a descending line of resistance, and we were looking to see if we could break out of that. Well, we did break out of that over a week ago. The other thing that we were looking to do to confirm a breakout to the upside was get past this blue line. I have a blue line here on the daily RSI at 50. That's considered neutral. So I've always said on this channel that good things happen for Bitcoin above 50 on the daily RSI. And you can see since we broke out of this descending line of resistance, we have run into 50 as a line of resistance as well. We've bounced off of this several times now. So I think until we can break above this, close at least one daily candle, if not 2, to the upside of this, we're going to continue stuck in this range that we're in. We just can't seem to get any momentum at all. So we're coming up on 2.5 months really of this sideways consolidation. So that is not by any means unprecedented. Bitcoin very often takes a breather of about a 2-month period going sideways. We have had periods that are even much longer than that. So for now, we remain in this sideways consolidation, but this turn to the downside is not anything other than a typical pullback. Again, this is our 5th pullback inside of this 18-month bull run of between 20 and 23%. So as long as we stay inside of that range, it seems like this is very boring and very painful, but this does seem like some business as usual. So for the time being, we're in a grin and bear it situation. We'll see what happens next. So that's what I got for you on Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. More to follow, and we'll definitely be doing some videos, taking a look at some deep dives on some of these earnings reports that have come out last week. If you made it this far, thanks so much for watching. Please remember to subscribe to the channel and smash the like button. It helps the channel out a lot. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.